Okay, so let's move on to our next set of speakers, actually. We have a panel. And we're going to be talking about actual trends. So let's get into the nitty-gritty a little bit with this panel, particularly around digital media, data, Internet of Things. And so we have Kern Schireson, Executive VP of Data Strategy and Consumer Intelligence at Viacom. Yaron Galai, co-founder CEO of Outbrain. And the panel will be moderated by Shelly Palmer, who's a managing director of Digital Media Group at Landmark. So can I ask the panelists to please come on up? If they're here. There they are.
We're here.
All right, good.
Outstanding.
Do you have slides or no?
Nope, don't need any of those.
All right, there you go.
When you said left, did you mean stage left or stage right? You didn't care. Okay, awesome. Maybe the other stage left. Well, got it. Sit over there. That's awesome.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Seriously? Hello, everybody. Everybody stand up. This is ridiculous. Stand up. Stand up. Everybody stand up.
Ooh.
I'm not kidding. Stand up. Everybody stand up. Do something else. I don't care what. Shake something off. Now sit back down and say, hello. Yeah, see, that's the way that works. There's just no version of the world where we're going to sit up here and put you guys to sleep. It can't be done. There is no sleeping at the Israel Dealmakers Summit. Cannot happen. Welcome, everybody. My name is Shelly Palmer. I am the Managing Director of the Digital Media Group at Landmark. Shelly Palmer, an awesome place for you to do business. I hope you guys are enjoying the show. You enjoying today?
Yes.
That's the right kind of response. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about market trends, digital media, data science, and IoT. In other words, we're going to talk about whatever we feel like, because that's pretty much everything there is to talk about in the entire world. How many people in this room have a smart device in their pocket? How many of you just didn't feel like raising your hand because, well, you know everybody has one? How many has a smart device in your pocket? Is it 100%? Okay, I'm going to go the other way. Who has a BlackBerry in their pocket? Thanks, you can leave. That's anybody else? No, okay. So you guys, I'm really sorry. You're not going to understand anything about what we're going to talk about today. That's okay. So, if you have been paying attention in class over the last little bit, you know that the Internet of Things, digital media, and data science have a lot in common. The most important part, oh, I'm holding this, don't need it. The most important part about digital media and its link to Internet of Things is, in fact, the data sets that are created. Information is not knowledge. There's no version of the world where a pile of information is valuable to you. You have to operate on that information, and you have to turn it into action. And that's one definition, a fairly decent definition, of data science, turning information into action. And the way you do that is by taking three foundational skills: domain expertise, mathematics, and computer science, and merging them together. Now, what comes out of that is either, one, a data scientist, a person who actually has those three foundational skills, or a data science department, a group that can, in fact, turn information into action. Now, in order to do that, the mathematics is very well understood. It has been well understood pretty much since they invented mathematics. And to be fair, the computer science is pretty well understood. And you could argue that some of the comp sci and math behind data science, or turning information into action, is just plumbing, although there are tons of opportunities inside that infrastructure. But the most important thing you can do with information to turn it into action is to ask the right questions. And there is domain expertise. So today we have a panel discussion, which is really going to be a Socratic discussion between two great friends of mine, Kern and Yaron. Now, Kern is a strategist in the most profound way you can say the word strategist. And not to blow too much smoke up Kern's, Kern's capabilities are really legendary in our business. There is a project called the Millennial Project that Viacom put out a while back. And it basically explained to the industry what this group of individuals was like and what their value was, and it allowed us all to ask the right questions about how to market to millennials. And although that's a claim to fame that I'm going to sort of lay on Kern, in practice it's important to this conversation today because it really underlines the value of asking the right questions. And Yaron runs a tiny little company you might have heard of called Outbrain. Now, the deal with Outbrain is fantastically interesting. It makes its living looking at information that you demonstrate behaviors to create, and then making recommendations that it's pretty sure you're going to want and you're going to accept and like. So it turns information into action by taking training sets that you help it create and then ultimately delivering value. Two fantastically interesting ways to create value in a data science ecosystem with digital media on one side and, of course, the Internet of Things on the other. The last thing before we start a discussion is why Internet of Things? It's a terrible phrase, doesn't mean anything, but for today's discussion, because it's a marketing term, it can mean anything you want it to mean, which is when I say it doesn't mean anything, I mean it can mean anything you want it to mean. For today's discussion, Internet of Things is going to be about the sensors and the devices that create information that we have to operate on. And you can have 100 other discussions about it and 100 other definitions about it, but for today's definition, for today's narrow discussion, Internet of Things is another way to create information which we need to operate on to turn into action. Ladies and gentlemen, a quick opening statement from Kern, then a quick opening statement from Yaron, and then we're just going to have a little talk about life, liberty, and the pursuit of data science.
Wow. Talk about a tough act to follow. Delighted to be here. Thank you, Shelly, and thank you for the introduction. I think that I am fascinated with the evolution of data science and particularly its application to media. And the only other thing I want to throw into the mix as we talk about all this is how we can sort of move back and forth between these poles and think about the data that's spinning out of all of the devices we carry and all of the things we interact with in our lives, how that finds its way into the world of media and storytelling, and then the round trip and the dialectic that is increasingly visible between these two ends of the spectrum. And particularly my perspective on this is framed by the business that I'm in at Viacom, which is using that conversation and that reverberation to create context for commercial messages and to create space for advertisers to engage in the conversation and to put forward a point of view in this increasingly instrumented and visible space that the Internet of Things and our devices and media are defining together.
Yaron.
Thanks. So yeah, just in terms of background, I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Outbrain. I hope you all use us every day or every week. We power the content recommendations for what to read next or what to watch next on many of the best publishers in the world, places like CNN and Fox News and ESPN. The interesting thing for us about data, and we consume a lot of data. We reach through our recommendations over 500 million consumers of content, readers, and video viewers every single month, and we create it's about 3.5 terabytes of data every single day that we process into making a better and better recommendation. Now, when we started in this space, the way publishers were generally thinking of how to recommend something for you was they were looking at where they generate the most revenue, and they were saying, if that's video now, we'll just carve out this section and we'll try to drive all of you to videos. And 2 p.m. might be the peak time where people consume content on publishers. So at 2 p.m., 100% of the people would see recommendations for video. What we're seeing now through data is that you have a lot of different people and a lot of people consuming in different ways on different devices. So we're seeing there's these 2 hours at the beginning of the day and the end of the day, which are more video heavy. And then people stop consuming video because it's more of the office time and they don't want to get their speakers on. And all of that. There's also, you start seeing much better personalization through devices. So I like to tell the story of, I love reading. I read all the time. You can't get me to watch a video. My brother just watches videos. He'll know exactly what was published on YouTube in the past hour, but doesn't read that much. I'm not even sure if he still has that skill. If you make the decisions based on we need to drive more videos, you're basically wasting 100% of my time and getting his attention. With devices and all that 3.5 terabytes of data that we process into recommendations, he'll get videos all day long, and I'll get stories or articles recommended to me all day long.
So I think that's a perfect jumping off point. The Holy Grail is sometimes not the Holy Grail, right? I want to know all the things I can know so I can recommend the thing you want the most. I want to have perfect knowledge as a marketer so I could say, wow, you are very likely to want to have Cheetos today, and I want to make sure that you have a Cheetos coupon. And I must have heard that version of an analogy or that kind of goal stated 1,000 times. But if you break that down, A, that's not what you guys do, and that's probably not going to happen because that's not the best use of the technology. So let's talk about the guide rails inside of which human beings interact with each other and the media and their environments. And in the same story, let's also talk about the behaviors demonstrated in a sensor-based world where I'm not engaging the way I would with content that you recommend or the way that content that Viacom puts out there, but I'm just living and data sets are being created. How are we going to deal with that? Like, where's that going?
Yeah, so if I go a few years back to the days of paper, there were generally,
when was that?
Simplify the world. To remember the days we'd get the yellow pages once a year at our doorstep. There was the newspaper and the yellow pages. That, and to me, in my simple world, the world kind of splits to those two pieces of paper. Yellow pages is when you know what you're looking for. You're looking for Cheetos, and you'll look up the Cheetos manufacturer or something, or a grocery store. The newspaper is when you don't know what you're looking for. You're looking to be entertained. You're looking to discover stuff, and that's flipping through the pages. And I couldn't tell you an hour ago that I'm expecting or looking for the story, but I'm now very interested in it. So the way, there's Google for the yellow pages world. If you know what you're looking for, there's Google. If you don't know, and if you're looking for discovery, that's what Outbrain is for. And the way we think about it is it's intelligent serendipity. So things might look non-intuitive and surprising and serendipitous, but what we're seeing through, again, over 500 million people that consume content that way, if you look at all the data signals and all the device signals and all that, you get a lot of patterns that are pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to frame it. And I'm imagining one of the things that you start to look for and recognize as you sift through these massive amounts of data, and this is certainly our experience at Viacom, is that you see how people tell you things, right? And start making these indirect links. And I think this is where the scale of big data and data science today is really taking us to a new place, is the ability to understand certain actions as proxies for a broader intent or for a cultural shift. To come back maybe to your metaphor of the newspaper versus the yellow pages, it's what are you doing in the newspaper, and what can I understand when I see you flip to the page that's about the weather, and then flip to a page that's about Mexico, right? What are you telling me about what's going on in your life, who you are, what kind of a mood you might be in, and how I can reach and connect with you next? It's not another article about Mexico, and it's not something about weather patterns. Right. It's something about vacation. And I think it's those softer connections that we're really seeing a lot of potential in.
Discovery, in fact, one of the worst predictors of what to recommend to you next is what you're doing now. That's one of the worst. You can almost go the opposite direction and you'll be better off in terms of engagement than showing something related to what you're reading about now or watching.
So both of those were going to bring me to this question, which are, when we use data science, when you are going to take some approach to machine learning and look for patterns, whether that's a supervised learning environment or unsupervised, or whether it's deep learning or reinforcement learning, no matter what set of tasks you're going to try to apply from a machine learning standpoint, you just need to be slightly better than random or slightly better than old predictive tool sets in order to show value. What's the end game goal, though? Because just being slightly better isn't going to do it. There are some companies who are going to go super deep here. What are they going to accomplish and how? Like, project out. Like, forget about what we can do now because it's nascent and we've got to figure out privacy and data munging and the data sets themselves are from everywhere. From your mind, like, it's 12 months from now. What are we talking about? Not 5 years, no, 12 months from now. How far do you think this goes and how fast? And what can I, as a business person or an investor or a deal maker, try to really wrap my head around so that in the short term I can make the idea of data science actionable from an investor standpoint or a businessman standpoint?
Well, I think maybe the larger picture here is that the world moved in the past 15, 20 years from a world of content scarcity to content abundance. And today, the real thing that's scarce is people's attention. How do we get that little sliver of their attention and use it in the best possible way? And I think the more data science comes into this, and the more the Netflix algorithms get better, and the Facebook ones, and ours, that fight for the scarce attention time is gonna reflect itself in, here's an amazing nugget of content that we think is going to be the best use of your time. And I think where we're absolutely seeing this is in the renaissance of TV. 10 years ago it was, well, from here on it's all going to be reality, and it's going to be cheaper production costs, and it's all downhill from here.
Didn't quite work out.
And as things became so abundant, I think the quality went up, and it's the fight for that attention scarcity.
Again, not shockingly, the algorithm that put us together, I happen to agree. I also think that, one of the things when I look at the space and I look at companies, and lots of folks are pitching Viacom all the time, and everybody's got a data solution, and everybody's got a vision for the future. I'm increasingly convinced that it's the third bucket that you described that we have the greatest tendency to forget, but that separates the real winners from the losers in this space, and certainly for us as creators and sort of cultural guides. It's the business expertise, the subject matter expertise, the creative vision. And, it's easy to get wrapped up in the excitement of all the processing and compute power we have, and everything we can do now around machine learning and the pace at which that is evolving. But every single great decision and great leap that I think Viacom has made, whether it's in the content that we create, the way we distribute it, how we package it, how we use that to create leverage for our advertisers, comes out of a collaboration with the creative people in the creative side of the business, and our data scientists who are funny and lively and watch TV and go out and live life. And it's all of the science in isolation isn't going to get us there. So I think that in this next evolution and over the next 12 months, I'm hoping that as an industry, we remind ourselves a little bit more that yes, we have the tools to do amazing things and make inferences at a scale and pace that we couldn't have imagined a couple of years ago. But then let's sit down, let's look at them, and let's make great creative leaps.
I love it. Okay, last two bits. Yaron, give me, if you were going to invest your money, personal money, in this business in the next 12 months, what kind of thing would you think was awesome to invest in, and what do you think a big growth area is in our world?
Well, I love my company, so but we're pretty much.
You might want to buy some Outbrain stock. Is that the theory? Yeah. Okay. Well, aside from Outbrain.
So I think we're still at the early stages of creating the list, basically, of the what's next, what's next, what's next. And Facebook does some of it, Twitter does some of it, but I think we're still not there in terms of figuring out. I want to get to the point where if I have 17 minutes, these are the absolute nuggets that I didn't even know exist.
Nice.
I think there are a few small companies that are starting to do interesting stuff, but I'll keep their names to myself. But those I think to me are the most exciting. Again, the folks that understand the scarcity of attention and are going to find the absolute nuggets.
Scarcity of attention. Investment thesis number one. Investment thesis number two.
I think that scarcity of attention is a great frame to bring to this, and I think that. For us and coming out of the media landscape, I think it's understanding the companies that are pulling together soft signals, I would say, and not necessarily, we've got our arms around cross-platform ID, we've got our arms around location and velocity and usage patterns, but it's the interpretation layer and the soft signals and the companies that are increasingly mining for that information that I think will help us understand where that sort of attention is fluttering, where it's going next, and how we can connect with it in a way that feels authentic and engaging and really capture a moment.
Fantastic. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, 2 theses off of 2 awesome companies. Viacom says soft signals, and Outbrain says scarcity of attention. I'm going to say to you, we're going to be scarce. Thank you so very much for your time today. Let's give these guys a big round of applause.
Thanks.